So we're going to look at factorization here. So there's three parts to the unit or to the lesson on factorization. So the first one we're going to start with is factorizing with common factors. So what it is you look at an expression like the one we have here, which you see has two parts. Okay, it has two terms in it. It has 6x squared and 4x. And you're looking for the parts that are in common to that. And like it tells you at the top, if every term in an expression has the same common factor, then we can place this factor in front in a set of brackets. We'll have a look at exactly what this means. So it's like we're kind of reversing the distributive property. So I'm going to show you a way to break it down so that you can understand it. And you can use this method if you want. It's going to take longer, but hopefully by using it you'll gradually get to see how it works that you won't need it anymore. So if you look at the first one there, we've 6x squared. So 6x squared, if I factor that down, that comes 2 times 3 times x times x. That's 6x squared, factored down to its last. Okay? And 4x would be 2 times x. Now, what we need to do is we need to see what's common to both of them. Well, there's a 2 here and a 2 here that I can cross off, so 2. And there's an x that can match with this x. So you see these things match up. So what have I got left? So what have I matched off? So from each one, I have a 2 and an x that I can match off. Okay, so that means that 2x is my common factor because it's 2x is in both of them. So now I've got my common factor. I open up my parentheses and I look at what's left. So in this side here, I have a 3 left over and an x from the first term, so 3x. And if I look at the second one, I just have a 2 left over, so it's plus 2. Okay, and the way that you check if you're right, if you multiply this by what's in here, you should get your answer back. Alright? So if you do it, 2x times 3x is 6x squared and 2x times 2 is 4. So we've done it correctly, and that's how you can check. So let's move down to the next one. So if you look at this here, so we've got minus 4 times a plus 1 plus a plus 2 times a plus 1. So look, this is one term, this is the other term. Okay? They're both separated by the plus in the middle. That plus in the middle separates it into two terms, okay? Because it's one thing by another thing, and then a plus in the middle, and then one thing by another thing. So they are terms, right? So if you look, what's common to each term? Is there anything that's common to the first term and to the second term? Well, yeah, there's a plus 1. A plus 1 is in each term. A plus 1. Now, look at the first term. When you take out the a plus 1, what's left? Minus 4. And look at the second term. When you take out the a plus 1, what's left? A plus 2. Okay? So, plus a plus 2. And there we have it. And sometimes, well, if you look what we can do now to tidy it up, we can write it as a plus 1 times, and we have a, and we go our minus 4 plus 2 gives us a minus 2. And we're done. There's our whole thing factored. Alright, any questions on this? Just note it down and you can look back. But all we did really was we took out the a plus 4 from each part because it was common, and we wrote it in parentheses at the front, and then in another pair of parentheses we wrote down what was left over. So let's have a look at the next one. So the next thing we want to look at is expressions with 4 terms. So if you look at expressions with 4 terms, you're going to see that what you can do is, this is the way they're always treated, what we do is we divide it up into 2 pieces. So we take the first 2 together and we take the second 2 together. Okay? So if we look, we can see that 3a and d don't have anything in common. And we can see that 3a, d and b don't have anything in common. So what we can do is rearrange it. So I'm going to write it like this. I'm going to write it as 3ab plus 3ad plus d plus b. Alright? Okay, so what I can do, if I look at the first 2, so I'm going to look at the first 2, and then I'm going to look at the second 2. So I look at the first 2, I see that 3a is in common to each of them. So I can write it as 3a, and what's left over? B from the first one, D from the second one. And now if I look at the other one, what automatically happens here, this is a little trick. Because this is common here, it's going to have to be common over here as well. So b plus d and d plus b are the same, right? So, and I just put a plus 1 here. I'm going to explain why the plus 1 comes in. So 3a times b plus d gives us this whole thing up here. Alright? Now, b plus d becomes a factor on the other side. What do I have to multiply b plus d by to get this here? Well, it's 1, so that's why the plus 1 goes in there. And then to finish it, right? What do we have? We put b plus d. And then what we do is we combine this and this in parentheses. Okay, so it's just a little trick and something that you need to remember more. So it's, with a bit of practice, you'll see why it works that way. But basically, if you multiply these two things out, you're going to get what we got at the start, okay? So if we take a look at the next one, we're going to split it into 2. Now, if you look at the first two, x squared and 2x, what's in common to those? Clearly, there's an x in common. So we're going to write x by... Now, if I mark an x out of each of those, what am I left with? I'm left with x plus 2. Okay? This x plus 2 automatically goes down as a factor of the other two terms, okay? It's a factor of these two as well. It has to be or it won't work. So now I look, and I think, what do I have to multiply x plus 2 by to get 5x plus 10? The answer is plus 5. Okay? So what am I left with? My solution, or my factors, are x plus 2, and then I put these two things here, like I said before, in parentheses together. So, times x plus 5. And there we go. Watch, very similar with this one here. So, the very first one we did was tricky because we had to rearrange the numbers, or we had to rearrange the terms so that there was something in common. But generally they will be in a good order that there is something in common, and it just makes it easier. So if you look at this one here, straight up, look, first 2, second 2, and you can see straight away that there's something in common between x squared and 3x. Again, it's the x. Put down the x, what's left? X plus 3. The x plus 3, remember, comes from, if I take an x out of x squared, if I divide an x out of it, I'm left with x. And if I divide the x out of 3x, I'm left with 3. Automatically goes down on the other side as a factor. Sorry, that's a little bit messy. Okay. Now, what do I have to multiply x plus 3 by to get minus 4x minus 12? I have to multiply by minus 4. So, I'm going to put down my factors, x plus 3 and x minus 4, and I'm finished. Okay? So I think we have one page of questions like this that we can look at really quickly. So no different to what we did before. Again, two terms. So x squared and 3x have an x in common. X plus 3. Again, the x plus 3 becomes a factor on the other side. And what do I have to multiply x plus 3 by to get minus x minus 3? Minus 1. So my factors are x plus 3 and x minus 1, and we're done.